Hi, this is Dr. Richard Ruling here to welcome you to the Total Health Channel. And please share this with others if you think it's good. I think it's, you know, the Bible is great, to be honest with you. It's 66 books, but a central theme of God's love for us and His plan to save us out of the messes that we get ourselves into with government, etc. And the title of this is How the Bible Shows Trump as Cyrus too, and he makes America great again, basically. And the U.S. is like Babylon, and it's going down. And the Pope is writing the UN to a new world order. That's out of it all before the book of Revelation ends and Christ comes to interrupt all the stuff with the plagues, etc. So how do we get there? The Bible says that God declares the end from the beginning in Isaiah 46 chapter, verse 10. And the book of beginnings shows an interesting start with something like the UN, in the sense that after the flood, people didn't want to trust God's promise of another flood, so they were building a Tower of Babel. And the Tower of Babel is the icon or model of the EU. They say it has a picture of a tower and many tongues but one voice, okay, in Europe. So they're in a sense it's mocking God because he scattered the world in their intent to do what they were doing, and the UN is trying to get it back together again and go against God's plan. America was great. It was to be a Christian, godly nation, and somehow it's falling apart right now. So how do we get to the end times from where we are? When Christ was asked about the end of the world, he said to study and understand the book of Daniel. And in Daniel's 8th chapter, there is a political cartoon of a ram and goat. Okay, the ram is really a Muslim ram pushing from the Middle East, north into Russia, south into Africa, and west to Europe and the New World. And it angers a goat that flies from the west. Originally, west was Grecia, and Alexander the Great came from Greece to conquer the world at that time. And he was the first, the great horn on the goat that came from the west. And it says that the horns on the ram were the kings of Media and Persia. But those countries today are Iraq and Iran. And the 17th verse of Daniel 8 says this vision is at the time of the end. So it's really not about Alexander the Great and about the Medes and Persians. It is about a goat that flies from the west, the U.S., okay, with a great horn, okay. And in the Bible, horns were cut off and blown through to make a trumpet, okay. And the great horn is the great trump, okay. That's how I see it. And if God declares the end from the beginning, you might find this very interesting, that in the book of beginnings, Genesis 22nd chapter, Abraham was tested over his willingness to sacrifice his son, which he was willing to do because God gave him this son miraculously, and he really loved that son. Sarah was about 90 years old, Abraham was about 100, but amazing that they could have a son, because Abraham's name meant father of a great nation, and he must have seemed like a hypocrite until he finally got a son, okay, but he did. And the issue partly is that the Muslims say that the son that was to be sacrificed was Ishmael. He was the first son, but he wasn't the son of promise, a miraculous son, okay? And so the question is, which is the true holy book? Well, the events unfolding in the Middle East are proving and going to prove that the Bible is the true holy book, because the true son was spared by sacrificing the ram. And the horns on the ram in Daniel are the kings of Media and Persia, Iraq and Iran. And Iraq is already, the king of Iraq, Saddam, is gone. He was taken care of. Actually, and this is amazing, that the first horn on the ram was caught in a bush. George Bush caught the ram, okay, and that's the first horn. And so the second horn that makes America great is really the great Trump, I think. So he has a role to play of Cyrus too, and Cyrus 1 we need to understand so that we can understand what Trump is supposed to do, and I think it's huge. First of all, if there was only one verse I had to convince anybody about God seeing the future and knowing the future, it would be about Cyrus 1. In Isaiah 45th chapter, first verse, God named Cyrus more than 100 years before he was born and told how he would conquer Babylon when 2 river gates were left open. And Cyrus knew nothing at all about the book of Isaiah, a Hebrew prophet in Jerusalem. And Jerusalem was conquered by Babylon 70 years before Cyrus came along. But when he decided he wanted to conquer Babylon, he diverted the Euphrates River into a reservoir and at night marched under Babylon's wall to discover 2 gates left open. And he conquered Babylon with almost no loss of life, I guess. And when Daniel showed him his name in the writings and about the 2 gates, Cyrus was impressed. He said he would let Israel go, and he helped pay their way back to their homeland, and even helped with a donation for the temple. He was converted really to the God of Israel in that instance. He felt that God knew him before he was born. In fact, 4 verses before that, in Isaiah 44 verse 24, God says, I formed you in the womb. Okay, well, what are we doing today with Roe v. Wade? Killing 63 million babies in the womb that God is trying to form. Okay, this country is going down, and Biden's plan is to bring back Roe v. Wade. I'm quite sure it's not going to happen. Okay, that's not God's will, and I'm amazed that Biden gave such a coherent speech. It wasn't a good speech. He was damning the opposition, and he wasn't the state. It's supposed to be the State of the Union, but he was not talking about union. He was dividing America by the things that he said and promoting bad stuff, including the immigration, etc. Which people coming into this country, they don't know what America's about, and there's lots of lawlessness from illegal aliens. So anyway, God has to punish us. If he punished Egypt for throwing babies in the river, he's got to punish America for throwing babies in the trash. 63 million, worse than Egypt. Okay, so I'm seeing that we're coming to epic times of Bible prophecy, and we might wonder, how do we get there? Okay, it's actually seen best from the book of Daniel, that the Muslim ram is going to make the goat angry, and I think it's because in Zechariah 14, Muslim nations are gathering against Jerusalem to battle. It says all nations. I think it's all surrounding or all Muslim nations, neighboring nations, and Turkey has President of Turkey, Erdogan, has appealed for 57 Muslim nations to siege Israel. He says, Jerusalem was our city. It was part of the Ottoman Empire. Well, that was 100 years ago, and I think that they are getting ready to do it, okay? And they will be successful according to Zechariah 14, when the city shall be taken, the houses rifled, the women raped, half the city goes into captivity, okay? But then the Lord goes against them, okay? I think God is wanting to get the unbelieving Jews out of Jerusalem. Jerusalem was to be a symbol of godly people, and the Apostle Paul in the New Testament said, if you're Christ, you're Abraham's seed, heirs according to the promise. That's heirs to the promised land. God is going to put Christians who believe in the biblical laws that the Jews keep. They're in the Bible, Old Testament. Remember the law of Moses with the statutes and judgments, it says in Malachi 4, 4 and 5. Behold, I send you Elijah. Elijah is supposed to restore all things. And there will be 10 tribes of the northern kingdom that originally had a false center of worship. Okay, when Jeroboam didn't want Israel going down to Jerusalem and getting sympathetic with their brethren in there, when the two houses split, they established a false center of worship in Dan. They didn't go down to Jerusalem. And today America has a false center of worship in Sunday, because there's nothing in the Bible about Sunday. It was called the first day of the week in Bible times, but there's nothing in the New Testament that God said, I think I'm going to change my mind and have everybody go on Sunday. That was Constantine. He was a sun worshiper, and to unite his realm, he made a Sunday law, and the Pope blessed it as the day of the resurrection. Pope just went along to get along, and through history, they have promoted Sunday, which is what Dies Domini, Pope John Paul, promoting Sunday, and then this Pope, Francis, with Laudato Si. It's so that we can have laws against work on Sunday for family values, and people can get the blessing of the Eucharist on Sunday. Well, I don't need their blessing of the Eucharist, okay, and certainly I don't need the Pope's blessing. He's blessed gay marriage, which has been an abomination in the Bible, in Leviticus 18, verse 22. So not a good situation, and this is brand new to the Catholic Church, to be blessing homosexual marriage. Okay, well, they have a homosexual Godhead too, male Father, male Son, male Holy Ghost. He. Except that in the Greek, there's no male pronouns for he and him and his, referring to the Spirit. Okay, and in the Bible, I didn't plan to get into this, but the Apostle Paul, who wrote half the New Testament, said, whatever may be known about God may be understood from the things that are made, even his Godhead. And if you want to go back to where the things are made, God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, male and female. Okay, and and Paul tells us in Galatians 4:26, Jerusalem above is the mother of us all. Now, a city can't be a mother, but cities can be named for important persons, and Jerusalem is her name, you see. And she even had a daughter in Isaiah 37th chapter, verse 22 and 23, when Sennacherib was knocking on the gates of Jerusalem to conquer it. He mocked the God of Israel as unable to deliver him. Well, Hezekiah was in sackcloth and ashes in the temple, and he sends Eliakim to the prophet Isaiah to see, is there any hope for us? And he comes back with the word from Isaiah the prophet, saying that the daughter of Jerusalem, and remember I said Jerusalem above is the mother, she had a daughter, and her daughter was blasphemed, it says, and she shook her head at Sennacherib and his general, and that night 185,000 Assyrians were dead outside the city gates. So she indeed was blasphemed. She was God, and she slew the Assyrians. But we see her again in the New Testament. Let me back up and say this. I didn't again intend to say this, but in Song of Solomon, which is one of the least understood books of the Bible, chapter 5, verse 2, you see, it's really about the process of Song of Solomon as as Israel's wisest king. But the true wisest king of Israel was Christ. And so this is really about Christ, and he says in Song of Solomon 5:2, open to me, my sister, my dove, my love, my undefiled. She was the dove that descended on him at his baptism. She anointed him for his ministry and gave him wisdom to answer the crafty and cunning Pharisees and priests when they were trying to trap Christ. And she spoke through him on the last night when Christ was saying, I'm going to go to my Father, and she said, I will not leave you orphans, I will come to you. The Greek word for orphans is orphanos, and that's in the text, but translators tried to cover this up with Mary as the co-redemptrix, according to the Catholic Church. They didn't want Christ's sister at all. They wanted Mary, as a co-redemptrix, when in reality, she said, and this is his sister, I will not leave you orphans, I will come to you. And in Romans 8:26, it says, the Spirit makes intercession with groanings that cannot be uttered. Christ is in heaven in the book of Hebrews, interceding before the Father. She is interceding in our hearts. Together they make a team for our salvation. And she is wooing our hearts to do right. And we see her again in Revelation 1 verse 13. One like the Son of Man, girt about the paps with a golden girdle. Okay, the Greek word for paps is mastos, female breast. And so she is the Spirit walking among the candlesticks for now. And whatever he that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. But it's about our salvation. And when the last person makes their last decision, she can regain her heavenly feminine form rather than the Spirit in our hearts. We can be sealed. We don't need her anymore. And we can be on our own in a time of trouble when our sins are blotted out and we don't have the memory of what it was like to drink alcohol, have illicit sex, or beat somebody, or what. So God's going to have a final generation of 144,000 who can stand for him without denying him, like the 3 Hebrew worthies in Babylon did. Yo, king, you can throw us in, but we're not going to bow down. And God's going to have a group of people like that. And so anyway, bottom line is, this is the greatest story never told, but there are, through the Old Testament, we see a feminine presence on the ark, the Shekinah glory, that priests and the rabbis understood to be feminine. And so we are made in their image, male and female, and basically women should not be beaten just because they're the weaker sex. In many respects, they can multitask and do things better than men can sometimes, holding a baby and stirring a pot while they're talking on a phone, getting dinner ready. So thank you for considering this. And now, how do we get to where this is all going to happen? The Muslims are going to take Jerusalem, and then they're going to celebrate their mosque and the Quran, which says Allah has no son. But the Lord is going to roar from Jerusalem. He is the Lion of Judah in Revelation 5:5. And when he roars, the heavens and earth will shake. That's Joel 3:16. And those Muslims will know they don't belong there, and they will flee. Zechariah 14 verse 5. And it doesn't say Muslim, but it does say flee. And there is an earthquake at that time. Day of the Lord is really the timing of this earthquake in Joel 3:14 and 16. And it's also the timing of when Muslims take the city of Jerusalem. Day of the Lord, all nations gathered against it. Day of the Lord is the end time extension of Night of the Lord in Egypt. When God executed judgment on Egypt, he says this is Night of the Lord in Exodus 12 verse 42. So bottom line is, we're coming to a time of judgment for America. The babies that we've thrown in the trash, and the gay marriage, as God punished Sodom for their homosexuality, he's going to punish America, and the end times will be here. But when he does, the earthquake will move us toward an economic collapse or crash in the fall. Okay, that's Revelation 8:5. There's an earthquake, and the next verse says the 7 angels with the 7 trumpets prepare to sound, and verse 7 says when the first angel sounds, all the green grass burns up on the earth. Well, if it's literal, we would be done and finished. But it's really a symbolic of it says in James 1:9-11, as the flower of the grass, so shall the rich man fade. They aren't dead, they're just not rich anymore. The economy is gone. When God attacked Egypt, he attacked the gods of Egypt. They worshiped the Nile. Nile turned to blood. They worshiped cattle. Cattle got disease. They worshiped frogs. Frogs were everywhere. We worship money. Money's got to go, and it will. Okay, and it's after the earthquake in Revelation 8:5. That earthquake is also the lion's roar in Revelation 10:3, before the 7 thunders, and it's also before the 7 seals in Revelation 6. When John hears thunder, it's the roar of the lion. Okay, And we already quoted Joel 3:16, the Lord will roar from heaven, the heavens and earth will shake. Or, he will roar from Jerusalem, sorry, the heavens and earth will shake. So that's how we get it, and at that point, Trump has to play the role of Cyrus too, basically. And as we move toward New World Order, he knows that Jews will not do good in America because it's going to be about Sunday. The Pope has made the appeals for Sunday, and Jews must worship on Sabbath. So get back to your homeland, and he's going to help them like Cyrus I helped the Jews return to their homeland. We will have to, if we're going to do biblical worship and not the false worship of Revelation 13, verses 14 and 15, when it does say false worship. We don't want to worship the beast and his image, which etc. is Rome, and the New World Order is the image beast. We want to worship God, and God's going to have his kingdom, and it's going to be established not in America, but in the land of the covenant. Okay, and Trump is going to help us get there, I believe. It says in Revelation 12, verse 14, to the woman, this is the pure woman. In Revelation 12:1, there's a pure woman clothed in light standing on the moon. Well, the imagery of that means lunar understanding of the calendar, because the Pope's calendar has nothing to do with the moon. Okay, the moon can be in the first of the month, the middle of the month, the end of the month. We want a lunar calendar. God says in Exodus 12:2, he will, this is the beginning of the month, the first month of the year to you. That was the month of Passover. The year didn't begin in January in Bible times and end in December. And when I understood this, I realized why things didn't happen last spring as I expected. It waited till the last day of the Feast of Tabernacles in the fall for Hamas to attack Israel. And this is escalating and building so that this spring we're going to see Muslims take the city. I'm confident. And then the Lord is going to roar, heavens and earth shake. And by the way, the Bible says in Joel 2:10, verses 1 and 2, that the day of the Lord is a day of darkness. And I believe it could be literal darkness in a sense of a power grid being knocked out. I heard Jonathan Hollerman, of Deputy Director of Homeland Security, explaining it would be so easy for a nuclear explosion in middle of America, like above Kansas City or somewhere, to knock out the power grid coast to coast with the transformers. And it takes about a year to rebuild those because they're specific for each location. And during that time, people in the cities will have no food, okay, because truckers can't pump their fuel without electricity. And so it's going to be bad news. I think get in this country. Let me give you an example specifically of why and how, because in the day of the Lord is a day of darkness, and if you Google dark day, May 19, 1780 was an unexplainably dark day that Christians took as a sign of Christ's coming. And it was repeated 200 years later to May 19, 1980, on the 200th anniversary, when Mount St. Helens erupted and put ash into the sky. Wind carried it overnight to darken 3 northwestern states, just like the Northeast in the first in 1780. So that on the anniversary date, May 19, 1980, it was a dark day. I think God was marking May 19. It's not his calendar, it's really the Pope's calendar, but since people don't really study God's calendar much, he marked the devil's calendar as well by May 19. And I believe that and the reason why it's significant for this year is because it's the same day that Noah entered the ark. If you read Genesis 7th chapter, verses 4 and 11, on the 10th day, God said to Noah, come into the ark. And the animals went in, of course, too. But when the people refused Noah's invitation, they were choosing themselves to be sacrificed. And a week later, the flood came. They mocked Noah for a while, and they thought this is a great party. But when it started raining, they Noah, let us in, let us in. Too late. Okay. I'm seeing that there'll be maybe a dark day, power grid or something, and probably a week later, as in Noah's day, earthquake that will shake the heavens and the earth. And we will be on the skids then, America will. America will be going down. It will be economic collapse in the fall on the Feast of Trumpets, when the first trumpet sounds and all the green grass burns up. As the flower of the grass, so shall the rich man fade. They're not rich anymore. Sorry, they've been doing a reset and trying to cunningly surprise us and keep their dollars, but it will be gone. And God's side will have power for 1260 days in Revelation 11, verse 3. They have the power to shut the heavens and turn water to blood. That's Moses and Elijah power. But when they finish their 3.5 years, then the beast ascends. That's the New World Order beast, and Pope will be in charge. And it'll be Babylon, as you see in Revelation 17 and 18. Babylon has fallen, but in that text of Revelation 18, verse 23, pharmakia is what deceives all nations. And we have been deceived with stuff as well. And bottom line is ultimately Babylon is going to fall. And it will fall before Christ comes, so that there will be no king standing when he does come. In the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom, it says in Daniel 2:44. So his kingdom is set up first. Look at the wedding parables. We'll talk about it later in another video like this. But ultimately, Pope helps to make America great, but dies prematurely, as Alexander the Great did. He died prematurely, and his kingdom was divided to his 4 generals. Well, in this case now, when the great horn breaks on the goat, 4 horns spring up, and the marginal reading points you back to Daniel 7, where there are 4 beasts. A lion with eagle's wings. That's the UK is a lion. We have the eagle's wings. Their alliance may be beaten by a bear. And I grew up with Russia as the bear. And then a leopard-like beast, and that could be China, economic power, with 4 heads, which may include economic forces of Japan and Korea and India. I don't know, four different powers. And then finally, the EU comes as the dragon-like beast, with the little horn or papacy as final supremacy for the last 3.5 years. 42 months, it says in Revelation. Let me just back up and say that early Americans who fled the papacy from Europe to this country for freedom here, all unanimously considered the beast of Revelation 13, the first sea beast, as the papacy. And the second beast, a lamb-like beast with 2 horns but no crowns, as America. No crowns, a government without a king, and a church without a pope, no crown. Protestant America. And it made fire come down from heaven. Hiroshima, Nagasaki fulfills that imagery. But we've caused the world to make an image to the first beast, the papacy. And the UN is the image. It's like it because there are so many Catholic countries that'll go along to get along and just do anything. Homosexuality is fine, and whatever you want to do is fine, except that God made America different and better, but we have made laws to have abortion and homosexuality, and God has to destroy this nation. And in Jeremiah 30, verse 3, he's going to make his kingdom out of Israel and Judah and cause them to return to the land that he gave our fathers, which is Israel. We're going to go back there. The Jews there don't want us there, and that's why they're going to be driven out. Okay, and that area of Middle East will be for Jews who accept Messiah and Christians who accept Moses' laws, biblical laws. Those two are totally compatible, and we see it in Ezekiel 37, when 2 sticks become 1 stick and 1 kingdom, in Ezekiel 37, verse 16, 17, and verse 22. And that's before Rosh and Ezekiel 38, when they come down to the land of unfenced cities, etc. So a lot of things to cover, and thank you for considering it. Please stay tuned and share this with others, and click the little buttons below, and we'll see you again. Thank you so much.